So initially, I wasn't really too excited for this movie, and I wasn't planning on seeing it right away. And then I got this text from my friend, and I was like, yeah, I think I gotta see this movie. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today our movie in the middle is Alien Romulus. Alien Romulus is the next installment in the Alien franchise, following a group of kids as they try to escape their suffocating lives on a ship to Yavaga, but end up trapping themselves in an abandoned space station full of xenomorphs. It stars Cailey, Spaeny, David Jonsson, Archie, Renaux, and Isabela, Merced. So, I may have lied. I know I said I was still gonna do the review for Borderlands even though it was terrible, but I mean... I just am not gonna pay to see that movie. I think I'm still gonna see it at some point with my family because we have to know, we've collectively decided we have to know how it could be that bad, so I'll still probably give some form of thoughts on it. But as I mentioned, I wasn't super interested in seeing this movie at first. When I first saw the trailer, I was like, oh god, another Alien movie. Just kind of like all the Terminators and Predators. I was like, there's just so many of these sequels in these franchises, like it's all just gonna be the same. Then I kept hearing some very interesting things about it before it came out, and then as soon as it came out, it like exploded. Like, it's amazing, it's violent, the story's great, it's graphic, and I was like, I gotta see what this is about. So the first Alien I saw years ago, and this movie falls under the category of movies I didn't fully appreciate when I first saw them, mostly because there was so much hype about them that when I finally saw these classics that I had been hearing about for years, I was like, oh, alright, well, yeah, that was fine. And others that fall in this category are like Seven and The Matrix, and I think now that I've had years and years in between, I think I do appreciate it a lot more for what it did for the horror genre in general, but then also just for the fact that, yeah, maybe it's not, like, scary all the way through, but the atmosphere is amazing. And then I did see Aliens just before I saw this, maybe about a week or two ago, and I really like that one as well. A lot of people say that one's better than the first. I still like the first way better, but the action in that one was really great, and it still had some great scares. I definitely thought it was going to be more action-oriented, less scares, but it actually followed a lot of what the first one did. Starting with the highs for this movie, everybody has been saying that this movie has given so much care and love by Fede Alvarez, and it is so true. This is definitely a love letter to the first one. It is clear that he wanted to give us another experience like the original. Although, like I said, I haven't seen anything else other than the first two Aliens, I can definitely tell that this is one of those back to basics, back to Formula One types of sequels where it's like, let's get back to what really, really worked, focusing on the story, the characters, the tension, and the atmosphere, which, of course, is quiet and isolated. The atmosphere in this movie is incredible. Even the credits felt like it was like an homage to the original 70s credits, where it's just plain, regular white text that's not fancy, it's just names appearing and disappearing, and it just feels solely like, let's not have a lot of flash in the design of everything else around the movie and just focus on the movie. And a big thing contributing to this was something that they were really hyping up in the marketing, was that they were going back to practical sets and locations, practical animatronics, and a lot of practical effects as well. Not completely, but mostly. And it really shows, because the real texture on a lot of these things, the creatures, the places that they're in, everything, just adds to that suspense and really makes it real. And the suspense is very visceral in this movie. The scares and the horror in this movie are really, really well done. It's a really good mix of like solid jump scares, general tension, extreme gore, and something that is going to stick in my brain for a long time. As you know with the Alien movies, it ain't over till it's over. And there's something that comes up in this third act, which on paper should be ridiculous. It's one of those ideas where you just go, what are we even doing at this point? It's just getting so outlandish. But honestly, it really worked, at least for me, because it was a very interesting what if this happened. And we got to see it, and it was pretty disturbing. But, of course, what else needs to work for this movie is the story and the characters, both of which I felt were great, and almost instantly I felt for these characters, and I felt that the relationships were working. Specifically, Cailey Spaeny's character and David Jonsson's character, Rain and Andy, respectively. Rain is the new Ripley, plain and simple. She is badass, she's a hero, she's intelligent, She's quick with everything, but honestly, I don't think much separates her from Ripley, except in one aspect. She has this relationship with David Jonsson's character, Andy, that I think is the best part of the movie. David Jonsson, I've seen him only in one other thing, and it was actually this year. I watched Rye Lane for the first time. Such a good movie. You should definitely go check that out if you haven't already. And he is really, really good at playing these characters who are basically like the wounded puppy kind of that you feel bad for, but then eventually he can stand up and defend and fight for himself. He's really good at playing these characters, and it was perfect casting in this movie for him because his character of Andy is unequivocally the most interesting character in this movie. There's something very specific about his character that you learn early on that is sort of a spoiler, so I'm not going to say what it is, but that thing makes for a very interesting watch, not only because just in and of itself it's interesting to see what he does as he's kind of pulled in two different directions and he reacts to all these things and see what he does, which, by the way, his acting is incredible for it. But that specific thing also is like a pathway for us to dive deeper into these themes that the movie is grappling with. Things like, do you save one person or do you sacrifice that person for all of humanity? Basically, the trolley problem. It also allows us to explore a lot more of this relationship, which again goes along with those themes as well. Their relationship was definitely the best part of the movie. It was the most compelling part, and both of them acted just incredibly. All the acting in this movie is really, really well done. And of course, the story is great. It's right in between the first and second Alien. It does a really good job of building on the first without retconning anything else that comes after, at least to my knowledge. In that way, it's kind of like El Camino, in which you get to see a lot more of the characters, flesh them out, flesh out a lot of this world and the themes that come with it without really changing anything that comes after it. I only have one thing that I wasn't quite sure about this movie. I'm going to put it as a middle because it's not really something that specifically this movie has a fault. It's just a general thing, and unfortunately I can't tell you specifically what it is because it is a spoiler, but it has to do with stuff that we can do with CGI now, and it's something that's not new, and I'm not going to harp on it because it's probably something that I've gone into before. It's this kind of boundary that is being crossed a lot more in, well, probably the last decade now, honestly, and ethically, it's weird. Morally, it's weird. Visually, it's kind of weird. It's just this very specific thing that we can do with CGI that I just don't know about. It's frightening, but not because the movie is frightening. It's frightening in its own way. And it's just kind of weird that we're getting to this spot where we can do some of these things that are just, I don't know how to feel about them. And again, I'm not going to fault this movie in particular because it's not the only one that's done it. And I think actually the way that they used it for the story was pretty good, although it definitely was the least good-looking thing in the movie. It was definitely the most like, this is CGI and I can tell. So overall, this is one of those gems where you're like, this is just going to be another one in the franchise, and then somebody comes along and finally does it justice, and you're like, thank God. I had the luxury of not seeing any of the terrible Alien movies, so I'm not even as happy as some of the other people probably are out there, but this was so well done. It was just simple, straightforward tension. They went back to the drawing board and just did that again with different characters, newer, deeper themes. It was really, really good. I'm so glad I watched it. It was a great movie experience. And again, the final act is something that I'm going to be thinking about for a while. There's just this one shot where it just shows something and you're like, oh, I did not prepare for that. I'm going to give Alien Romulus a 3.5 out of 4. Well, guys, let me know what you thought of Alien Romulus. Where does it stack in all of the other ones? I'm assuming it's probably going to be either like 2 or 3 behind the original. Let me know if you think that they should continue with Alien movies and Predator movies, because it seems like they've sort of been doing pretty well with them, kind of coming back to the originals and making actually pretty good movies out of them, even though it seems like we've sort of exhausted what we can do with these franchises. So let me know all of that, and as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.